Welcome to the GuthrieAmerica podcast. We sit down with amazing people who do life in our community and who are from here because we believe every story should be told. I'm your host, Heady Coleman. Today I'm sitting down with the one and only Matt Cook. Matt, what does your family call you? Matthew or Matt?
Matt, okay.
Matt Cook. Before we jump into this conversation with Matt, will you please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, all the things. It would mean the world to me. Matt, it's a beautiful day in Guthrie, America.
Yes, it is.
I'm so glad to have you on this morning.
Yes, summer is fading. It was nice and cool temps. Life is good.
Yeah, I wish it would just stay like this.
Yes.
Do you prefer hot or cold, summer or winter?
I prefer cold.
Okay. Yeah.
If I prefer mountains versus beach, I'd rather... If that's me, I'm putting a coat on and life is good.
You headed to the mountains.
Yes.
Now, you're from Texas originally, right?
Yes.
Now, did you grow up, born and raised there?
Yeah, I was actually born in Arlington, Texas, and then kind of bounced around a little bit with East Texas. But then from about third grade on, lived in a town called Burleson, right south of Fort Worth. It used to be way out in the middle of, the considered like almost rural, whatever, but now it's all concrete jungle. So there's people everywhere.
Texas is, oh my goodness.
Yes.
That area right there has just grown immensely. It's crazy.
Yes. And so I thank God, and I never thought I'd say this. I never thought I'd marry an Okie girl. And it's funny, I called myself a missionary to Oklahoma for years just to aggravate my wife. And but I've noticed that the culture and the pace of Guthrie, specifically with this area, I like a lot better. Whenever we go back to see my family in DFW, I spend money on the HOA lanes, the fast lanes, because traffic. My blood pressure goes up. I turn into a cranky driver. Too many people. And it's the driving is either like almost eat or be eaten type philosophy.
Yeah.
And I like to slow down.
It's just like wherever you go, you're going to take 45, 50 minutes.
Yes, and it shouldn't, but there's just so many. Yeah.
So many people. So what year did you leave Texas?
So let's see, it's August of 2003. We moved from, we lived in Fort Worth at that time, to a little farmhouse west of Guthrie, off of Western and Highway 33. My wife, she taught me into it. It was we got that house for $250 a month. 3-bedroom little farmhouse on 160 acres that at one time was a tree farm.
Oh wow!
So you take this guy who lived in the city, and it's like wide. There was deer. It was so quiet. I could walk outside and target practice, and so it was that's what got me $250 a month. I was bought.
So I'm all in. I don't know where this is at.
Yeah,
I don't know anything about this place, but at $250 a month, I am all good.
And the first night we unload the U-Haul, get settled, come in town in Guthrie. And they had the old Walmart. This wasn't even the Walmart Supercenter version of Guthrie.
Wow, 2003. Okay.
And it was like 8 o'clock at night. Like I'm hungry because you're used to Fort Worth. Everything's open, right? Nothing was open. And I'm like, where did you move me to? Like you hear the banjos playing. Like, but that was the beginning of.
So you've been here since 2003?
Yep.
Oh wow.
Yep.
Okay.
And we kind of moved. At one point, we lived in Yukon, Mustang area, and then kind of rural Crescent area. But we've been actually inside Guthrie area for the last almost 8 years. But probably in that span since 2003, probably 2/3 of that has been in Guthrie.
What were some highlights for you if you reflect back growing up in Texas? Like, what were some of the fun things about it?
So I'm a huge, I'm a huge baseball fan. So I had season tickets to the Rangers. Now they won the World Series last year. I had them whenever they were horrible. A-Rod years is whenever I could finally afford season tickets to the Rangers, and they were so bad. But I've always loved sports, and if you're a sports guy and you live in a town back with the Cowboys, Mavericks, all of them, baseball's always been that one, and so that's kind of. But it's also the place I met my wife. So
okay,
there you go.
Can you convince a non-baseball person to love baseball? Like, what is it? Explain to me, what is it for you that just because I'll see you in Rangers gear from head to toe.
Oh yeah,
but I think you got Rangers socks.
Oh, I have actually at this point I'm up to 18 pair of Rangers socks. So this is one of the few days I'm not wearing Ranger socks.
Help me understand your love for baseball.
So the beauty of baseball to me is it is very much a team sport. Every part of the team has to function together.
Yeah.
But it's still, there's moments that it's just about what you and how you individually contribute. You know, there's something like, you know, playing left field, when that ball's hit and you're chasing down that fly ball, it's just, can you get there fast enough? You know, are you going to get your glove? All those things. But then there's this chess match between the pitcher and the batter and the catcher, and you know, what pitcher you're going to choose, where you know, is it going to be inside, is it going to be low, all those things. There's so much little intricacies to the sport that's the draw for me.
Yeah.
And I was armchair quarterback in the whole World Series run last year, and Bruce Bochy, which is going to be a, you know, Hall of Fame manager, and I'm here in Guthrie. Why are you putting that pitcher in? This is no. Well, I'm telling this guy who's a professional manager, and so it's the joy of the game. Yeah, so it's fun.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people too just talk about the stats of baseball or
Yep.
something that they really get into, because it's a lot of that is about the numbers.
Well, stats live forever. That's you know, like I remember, you know, Juan Gonzalez back in the 90s led the league in home runs with 47 home runs, and like, you know, that was how many years ago, in like 94, 95, you know, I remember those. I stopped looking at win-loss records as a Rangers fan. We didn't pay after the All-Star break was when they tanked, and but no, that's the thing about it is, you know, and that's why you have arguments like right now, is Ohtani better than Babe Ruth, and Babe Ruth, you know, who played hundreds of years apart.
Yeah.
But the stats speak. And
the stats
so
are what is Ohtani the Asian guy that got like the ridiculous contract?
Yes, $700 million. But this year, first year for the Dodgers, 50 home runs, 50 RBIs. Never done it before. But they played the long game and they're making their money.
Yeah,
it's weird to think that someone's worth $700 million, but the revenue and
Well, in baseball, I'm like, who's watching baseball? Like, it used to be everywhere. I feel like now it's like.
And you know, there is a TV revenue that they get a lot from, but it's just, you know, putting people in the seats and selling. And if you go on Google, they had a Ohtani bobblehead night for the Dodgers. Look at the line to get into the stadium.
Wow.
So
people are watching.
They're making their money.
Yeah, people are watching baseball.
Those
just not me.
Those owners aren't suffering for Jesus on the side of the road, trying to, you know, please feed me, or you know.
No, if they're giving out $700 million contracts for however many years.
Hey,
they're definitely making their money.
And last year, the World Series, you know, I was blessed with a chance to go to Game 2 of the World Series. Let me tell you, the owners they made some money last year in that World Series. I have World Series hats. I have AL Championship hats. I have the socks.
But you have a problem, though.
I don't think it's a problem. In fact, we went down. All of them been to one game this year, and they had these Rangers overalls, and my wife was like, "You're not buying those." And so I had the hat, the socks, I had Rangers shoes, everything.
God.
And
no, you have Ranger shoes.
Oh yeah. Ranger, they're like white Converse Ranger shoes, custom made. So Pastor Josh, my wife sent him a picture or I think the same picture of these overalls. It's like, my wife's being rude. She won't let me buy him. He's like, if you wear them, I'll buy him. I'm like, deal. And so I walked around with these, and I have them.
Oh, you had them on?
Oh yeah,
for the game too.
I wore them the whole rest of the game. Absolutely. And so next year opening day, guess what? Even if I'm in Oklahoma, that's what you're wearing. You're putting them on.
Yep. First game of for the rest of your life. You have to have
the overalls, the shirt that matches.
Do you have a hat? Like, is this cowboy hat Rangers hat, or is this baseball Rangers hat?
Oh, baseball, yeah.
That you would wear with that.
Oh yeah.
You should definitely get a cowboy hat, custom Rangers.
Oh, they have them. They had them there. Yeah. Oh yeah. And so it's funny. My wife is. I was asking, do you need another purse? She's like, do you need another bobblehead? Do you need another hat?
Right.
Yeah, I kind of do need another hat. Do you have a hat? I mean, there's different colors of blue that have to match. And all these things.
Yeah. Now, you and Heather been married how long?
23 years.
23 years. Tell me the love story. Like, where did y'all meet?
So,
did she ask you to marry her?
She begged me. No. So I remember I was going for a job interview at a church in Fort Worth. And on the interview, I remember walking down the hallway, and this lady from their HR department was taking me down to go meet with the hiring manager. And I remember walking by the break room, which I didn't know was a break room. I walked by, and I remember seeing this Cute little blonde girl. I can tell you, looking back, I know what dress she was wearing. I know who she was standing next to. Because in my mind, I'm like, hey, if I get a job here, I want to find out who that is. And so I got the job. And I think that maybe the first or second week, I invited her to a baseball game with me. And so we kind of dated, broke up for a little bit, and we broke up like in like maybe June or whatever. But it was about August or September. I come back to my desk and there's a note from her, and it's signed. It says something about, hey, how are you doing? It's signed, love you. And I'm like, well, I haven't talked to you like in 4 months, whatever. But there was this other girl that got hired on that I was kind of like, flirting with, whatever. And Heather saw me flirting with this girl, and she's like, I didn't want it, but I wanted to have someone else. So I didn't care at that point. Heather came back, and so we dated. That was October, and then we got engaged in November, or actually December. That was 2000, and then 2001, we got married. So,
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then she convinced you to come to Oklahoma. Was that a convincing, or how did that work? Was it because of a job, or?
Well, she was 3 months pregnant with our oldest.
Okay.
And her parents all lived down there, and they moved back. And
they moved back to Oklahoma?
To Oklahoma.
Okay.
And she was fine for a while, and I could just tell that for her, I thought it would be better. I had a weird piece about it. Didn't make a lot of sense, because literally uprooting this Texas boy to go live in some farmhouse in Oklahoma, but it's just one of those things that you just know you're supposed to do without, it's hard to you can't pro and con those things. If it's what you're supposed to do, it's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And so, my oldest son was born in February. We moved in August, and it was just us three for a while in this little house and off of Western and in 33. So,
what was it like becoming a father?
I remember the first time I held my oldest, and everything in that moment changed. It's just, you're holding this child that is completely dependent on you for everything. And there was just the enormity of that moment. I just remember there was tears coming out, and I just held my son, and it just changed everything. Mm-hmm. Whenever it's you by yourself, it's fine. When it was me and my wife, you don't think a lot about future and all. It's just, you're just newlyweds, and life is everything, perfect. But that moment, it was just, I think the magnitude of like, wow, this is this precious little boy that, by the way, is named Nolan after Nolan Ryan. So I got that baseball name in there. But no, it just, to me, it changed everything. So
now, how many children do you have now?
6.
6. What? So you had this first one, fell in love, became a dad.
Yep.
What was the plan to have 5 more?
So this is God's sense of humor, and I've discovered over the years I think God likes my wife more than me. Okay. Because he answers her prayers when I'm praying contrary. No, so we had 2003. Nolan was born. 2005. Katie was born, and I was content. Maybe one more. Heather wanted a symmetrical number, just something she always wanted, an even number, whatever. And so apparently twins run in her family, and I didn't know it. It's something that never came up in conversation. What also never came up in conversation was that she wanted twins.
Okay.
And so I was working at an insurance company one day, and I just felt just in my heart, it's like, hey, Heather's pregnant, and it's twins. And I remember that, what? That's bad pizza. Like, what in the world? And so that first sonogram, it was bam, bam. And I start hyperventilating the sonographer in the room, whatever it is. I think that's what they're called. She's like, sir, do you need to sit down? Because I'm sweating and everything. And so at one point, we had 4 kids, all under the age of 4. Nolan wasn't quite 4. And so we had a 3, 2, and then infant twins. And waited 7 years for more because that was a lot. That was, looking back, we joke around because that was probably the least romantic moment of our life because we're in survival mode. The twins had to eat within 30 minutes because they would burn more calories than they would intake if it took longer than 30 minutes, and they were having to maintain a weight because they were born at 35 weeks. And so there's all this pressure and all these things. And so it was it was good times.
What is the difference between, like, if there's a difference? Like, I haven't had to raise twins versus having just children who are not twins.
Yeah.
Is there a difference? Like, how do you approach that? Is there
the weird thing is, at first, probably the first 2 or 3 years, it was actually easier because they entertained themselves. They had from day one, and actually there's you'll discover with twins they actually have like their own language that they would speak, and they would just baby talk, and then the other one would go get, and they got each other, and so. In some ways, it was really it was awesome. It was hard because you think double diapers, double formula, double everything. And so it was in some ways easier and in some ways complicated. They've always been like the best of friends, but then I also watched that the proximity to each other became, they would go from hugging each other to full on MMA. And I remember walking in the room one time, because you hear the commotion of teenage boys being teenage boys, and hey, what's going on? And one of the twins like, oh, Gavin slipped and fell, whatever. And so my oldest one was like, they're lying. He punched him because he said this, and then he punched him back. And so it's just like it's those, but they cover for each other.
Yeah,
they'll go from just full on, they're throwing fists, and then you walk in, oh, we're good, everything's fine.
Yeah,
like, you lie. So, but it's cool to watch, especially as they've gotten older. They're very unique, and they're identical and look, but even that's changed over the years and stuff. But they've owned their own personalities, and we've been I think we've been good about letting them be unique. Gavin doesn't have to be Gabriel. Gabriel doesn't have to be Gavin. They're
be yourselves.
Yeah.
Even though you're twins and have that special uniqueness about you, you're still individuals.
Yep. And we noticed it was about 5 or 6. You know, a lot of times you'll go to Target and they'll have the same stylish shirt, one in blue, one in green or whatever. Gavin and Gabriel would always pick the opposite of each other. They would always, like, and without even knowing that their twin did it, we'd hold 2 shirts, and it was they naturally at that point started to show some individuality.
Okay.
And so we've always just kind of ran with it. So
because some people and I don't know if it's a forced thing or if the twins really want to be dressing alike.
No, it wasn't an option for the first, I think, 6 years of their life. Heather fully embraced this twin thing, and they dressed identical. And I think it was about 6 there, like they were done.
It's like enough of that.
Yeah. But they also learned, I'm pretty sure it was Gavin. They were dressed identical. They were in the I think probably two-year-old classroom in the church we were going to at the time, and walked up and got candy with his right hand, and then walked around and put his left hand out and got more candy. So Gabriel comes up and is like, hey, I want my candy. Like, we already gave it to you. It's like, no, you didn't. Your shady little brother got 2 things of candy. And so they learn how to play each other a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
That's good times.
Do the other siblings treat them any different because they're twins?
No.
Okay,
It's just brother.
Yeah. Now, thinking about yourself and your kids, like, what were you like as a kid? Do you see any of your kids having similarities to you? Like,
yes. So it's really weird to look at a child that maybe looks like their mom but acts like you, which I want them to look like their mom because she's beautiful. And I have a face made for radio. So, but no, I see the similarities. And my oldest daughter at OU, I watch her chart her own path. But then she's got the sarcasm and stubbornness that comes from me. But then she's very much at times like her mom, and so you see the glimpses of that mesh of both of us, and so it's interesting.
Now, you were a sarcastic kid growing up.
Yes, it is a preferred form of communication in my side of the family. Not always accepted as much by Heather. It's her cross to bear, unfortunately. Because my most of my kids follow in that form of communication, for better or for worse.
But that was just part of, like, how many siblings did you have?
I've 2 biological and then 1 stepsister.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
All girls, and I have 4 boys, so that was good.
Yeah. So when you were going to school in Texas as a kid versus Guthrie, where your children, did all your children go, or did y'all homeschool any?
So we actually homeschooled the older 4 up until Katie was a freshman and the twins hit junior high. And pled their case in a really good way of why they should go to public school. And that was interesting because that was almost like a crisis of identity a little bit for our family, because that was who we were in the homeschool world and all of that, and put the kids in public school, and they thrived in that, and so that kind of changed it. So from that point, and then the younger two were in elementary school, and then we're hitting this weird transition, and so instead of having them leave one school and move and everything else, they're homeschooling now, and then we'll put them in school in Stillwater when we get settled, and then a couple weeks and stuff. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Because you grew up in a bigger city, like, did you have to kind of adjust to your kids growing up in smaller schools, or kind of because you grew up in this big school? It's probably completely different, right? What was it like going to school in a big city?
Burleson, size-wise of the school, was bigger, but it wasn't like, a major, huge.
Oh yeah, because you were out.
So it was a little bit different for me. What I loved about is whenever high school and junior high is a little bit different. Just because you trust your kids a little bit more. There's not as much of the vulnerability perceived. There's still, especially seventh grade boys are little jackwagons. That's just, the brain's not fully developed. They act like it. But knowing that some of the teachers, knowing the connections, when we put the kids in elementary school, knowing the principal and having relationships because we would go to church with them or see them in the community. As a parent, that meant a lot because there was someone that I trusted, because I'm literally handing you my child for 7 hours or so a day. And so to know the heart behind the people, to me, that meant a lot, because I knew that these are people that I could trust. Never expect perfection, but they had the heart for it.
Yeah. That's good. You and Heather have a Instagram.
Yeah.
Around couples.
Yep.
How did that start, and kind of what's the big picture for something like that?
So we were working at community church south of Guthrie, and just felt kind of drawn. We had a good marriage, but a typical marriage, it would have peaks and valleys. And looking back over the years, there were some times that we always wanted to have a better marriage and didn't necessarily know how. And so just started connecting with some other couples that just doing life together, and just started doing some Bible studies, some marriage type devotionals. And it's so funny, the irony. The first marriage focused class that we led, it almost broke us. I mean, it's just you teach out of vulnerability sometimes, and we would just be so mad at each other and start class. But what we learned through that is just people respect authenticity. If you walk into some place and act like you've arrived, everyone, it's a facade, and people don't respect that. So there are some classes that we walk in and say, hey guys, it's been a rough week for us. This is what's happened, and this is some things we did really good, some things that we're walking through, and I think people respected that because you can connect with if it's authentic.
Yeah.
And doing that, we discovered a lot about ministry, but it grew these small groups, and then it launched into something online. And the thing about the Instagram that I love is that there's no end to the reach. And so we'll get messages from literally every country in the world. Sometimes it seems like they'll ask some questions and do some stuff, but it's really kind of helped. For us, people just need it's not rocket science to how to have a good marriage, but sometimes people just, even if it may seem obvious, it just needs to be like, how do you articulate it plainly and easily to someone? Hey, here's a good idea. Have you thought about this? Here's some constructive criticism. Have you thought about this? And we try to just make things practical, and people respond to that, and it's helped.
Yeah. So. That's really good. Yeah, and marriages are just so key to, man, I think a healthy marriage impacts community.
Yeah.
And the more healthy marriages we can have, the better communities we can have, because I hope out of that, it's probably better families. And so it's really cool to see you all do that and not just impacting locally, but globally.
Yep.
And because of social media, you can do some of those kind of things.
Oh, yeah.
What was the journey like just kind of learning social media? I feel like early, I remember you saying your daughter had to kind of jump in and help give you all direction. And
Yes. So when we first started, because anytime that you're new at something, it's the whole start small, start now.
Yeah.
At least get it going. And my daughter was in high school at the time. She's always been blessed with opinions. Some of them are constructive. But this one, she just had an eye for some things. And so I allowed her to influence kind of some of the design and the look, not the content, but the branding, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And so she really helped. In the moment that I allowed that influence in, it started taking off. And then it was so funny because she was an admin on our page, and we keep things very PG, maybe PG-13 type. There's certain things because we have kids and a lot of my kids' kids see this stuff, and so we've always kept some things. Just there's certain things that are great in a counseling thing that you'll talk about in more detail. But there was something that was just, it was on emotional and physical intimacy, something like that. Nothing to it. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm done." And so I think at that point she disassociated herself from the page for a while or something. But it was, to me, and even now with Grace Family Church, I'm handing the keys over to her for some stuff because you're better. There's people I've learned if I can empower people around me that are better than I am at certain things. Right. I mean, there's no ego here.
Yeah.
Let them help. And so it works out well for me too.
That's cool. That's cool. Now you have from the time that I've known you, you've worked in the church for the most part. I think you worked in the corporate world maybe right before I met you.
Yep.
Met you when you were at community for the most part. Then transition, had the opportunity to go over to Generations Church.
Yep.
And you and your wife have been super involved in that. And here recently, so I was like, I need to get y'all on the GuthrieAmerica podcast before you all bounce out of Guthrie, right? So it can still be legit.
Yes.
Because, this mission of having every story told of those who do life here and from here, I guess we could have still did it in the sense of like, you all are from here.
Sure.
This is where you will always remember Guthrie and have, kind of grown up here. So, so to speak. Working in the church world versus corporate world, let's kind of start there. What was that like for you coming into the church world? So
it's the weirdest thing, and I didn't realize at the time that I learned how to pastor people in the corporate world. When I was working, I worked for Love's corporate office and logistics. Started out at entry-level position and worked my way up to senior manager. I ran half of the department. I did most 90% of the hiring, went through me. Unfortunately, I think 90% of the firing went, but I learned just how to early on that if I invested myself in my employees, they looked good and I looked good.
Yeah.
And I think that I was promoted because I spent all of my time and my energy instead of trying to make me look like the best version of me. And there was times that I would sit at an employee's desk and say, "Hey, type this email and I'm gonna help you with this." And this email was going up to managers and vice presidents of the company and all these things. And because I was trying to train these people on how to do my job one day. And I was in a meeting and my boss was like, "Hey, good job on that email." Well, it didn't come from me, but he knew it came from me because he knew what I was doing. And as a result, it's funny, most of my old department are people that were my former employees because I just learned how to just invest in people. Well, that's what ministry is. Ministry is investing in people. The easy thing about corporate is you also can fire people. It's really hard to fire someone from a church.
Yeah.
And I think Pastor Bill at Community had to deal with the much more aggressive version of me that's like, fire them, whatever. They're part-time. Who cares? Just get rid of them.
Yeah.
That's another church. And it's funny how patient God is compared to me. And so there was a much needed temperance, I think, that within me personally with ministry, But I think leadership is leadership, whether it's the corporate world or the business world, of what form, whether construction, you're on a job site, unless you want to be the one doing everything for the rest of your life. If you're going to ever lead someone, you have to invest in them. Right. And that's what ministry is. That's what Jesus did to the disciples. Yeah. He just invested. That meant he loved them. He called Peter Satan at one point and didn't not love Peter at that time. But he was willing to have hard conversations and address the elephants in the room and stuff. And that's leadership.
Yeah. So. Yeah, for sure. So you've been in ministry, and I guess to be fair, you were in ministry before you came to Love's, right?
Yes. Yeah. I've always, I grew up in church, whether it was young adults ministry, worship team, volunteers as a youth pastor at a startup church years ago. So it's, we've always been intertwined in that.
Yeah. And your wife as well.
Yes.
Both have always been in ministry in some degree and met in ministry.
Yep.
Yeah. So now understanding that you've been a part of churches to where they were already going for the most part.
Yep.
Now you are about to take a big step and go start one from scratch.
Yes.
With like zero.
Yeah. Zero is the right word.
With nothing.
Yes.
Tell me, what are some things?
Can you say that more dramatic?
Yeah.
With nothing.
With absolutely nothing. Why?
I blame God. No. We've always known in our heart that we were supposed to, at some point, pastor a church. Mm-hmm. Never in my wildest mind would it not think that it would be that your traditional church needs a pastor. God says, Matt, move here, take your family. I'm in a master's program through Trinity Bible College in Ellendale, North Dakota, and we do these cohorts twice a year in different parts of the country. And we were in Great Bend, Kansas last year, and God started talking to me about planting. And I rebuked that thought. That's bad pizza, whatever. Because if you're going to pastor a church, I think the daunting task is creating something out of scratch. And so put it outside my thought. But then it was about January, February. Me and Heather were talking. I just knew something was coming. You can just tell that there's something coming around the corner. I didn't know what it was, but there were some things in life I was frustrated with, and I was at that point that I just needed to get alone with God. So I drove. We had a cohort in Valentine, Nebraska. If you've ever been to Valentine, Nebraska, I'll be shocked. It's out. It's south of these Sioux reservations in the middle of nothing, Nebraska. But when I was planning this, I realized that it was 2 hours from the Badlands. And so I woke up, I left the house like at 5 o'clock in the morning, maybe 4 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, and drove 17 hours to the Badlands to get alone with God. And I needed to just quiet the noise, get away from all the family, all the distractions. And I remember, it actually snowed on the way up there. It was because you're going that far north, and it was cold, and I was one of the only people walking around like this, like, who's this fool? And just got alone, and that was my moment. That is almost like Elijah going to the mountain, and it's like, God, I feel like all these dreams that we've had for so many years, they're just falling flat. Mm. And it's like your word says the callings are without repentance. So it's like, and I kind of aired my grievances to God, for lack of better words. I'm not saying that was right, but that was this vulnerable moment, and there was nothing. It was silence. I heard nothing. So I got back in the car, got to the hotel. Maybe 11 o'clock at night, out in the middle of nowhere in Nebraska. And then I saw that there was a nature reserve overlooking this really beautiful river that cuts through Valentine. And the next morning I woke up. It was 13 degrees. I have pictures of the waterfall that's like half frozen. Only one out there. And then I realized the only thing out there with me was a mountain lion, not too far away because all the signs. But there was this bench that overlooked the river. And that was that moment of, God, just whatever you want. I will be who you want me to be, who you created to be, whatever it looks like, whatever it takes. And from that point on, the rest of the week, it was, hey, you're going to plant. And the whole class, the week was about church planting and multiplication. And I couldn't shake it. And it was just that moment. And at that point, I began to realize that this is the cost will be significant. It's a sacrifice. It's hard, but it's one of those things. Whenever it's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
What I've discovered is along this journey, God never asked my opinion on all of it either. Like, hey Matt, would you want this church here? And we prayed, and so Heather, to her credit, I called her and I said, hey, this is what we're supposed to do, and she's like, let's do it. But God, through some other steps, really confirmed in her to where it was. At first, she just trusted the Holy Spirit in me, and then through some things that she had that deep conviction too, and so we've been on this journey since about March. And in March, at first we had to just figure out what does this mean to plant a church. So we went to some launch training, some event in Nashville. Generations sent us to Nashville to spend a week learning what it means to plant a church and stuff, and so it's been a ride since then.
Yeah. What are some things that people probably don't think of? And the people who listen to this probably would never have been people who were thinking about starting a church, but maybe somebody finds this. Like, what are some things that you think most people don't think about whenever planting a church?
So I think ministry, sometimes it's easy to forget that, and I had a pastor growing up that he said ministry is spelled work, WORK. And doing this from scratch means, yes, we need God's blessings and we need God's favor, and God does that, but God expects us to get off of our rear and do something. And so I've watched his faithfulness provide. We're in the middle of this fundraising thing, and we're at 42% of our 2-year goal. But I've been crisscrossing the state, Enid, Lawton, Tulsa, I don't know how many times, meeting with pastors, learning a lot. I've learned so much in the last 2 months about what it means to be a pastor, but also raising funds for this church plant. Joining the Chamber of Commerce, going to these events, relationship, all of it. I could sit at home and just pray, God, this Field of Dreams model. If we'll show up and people. That's not how it works. It's you got to get out there. You got to meet people. You got to earn the right to speak into people's life. Yeah. And it takes intentionality. It takes effort. It's work.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. That is cool. When are y'all launching?
March 2nd is the official service on a Sunday morning. We've already started. Last night, we had our first Connect group, and we have another couple joining us they're along for the ride. And last night we locked in. We have 2 awesome college girls from OSU that are going to help us with the childcare stuff from day one. And so it starts small, start now. There was 14 people there last night, which is awesome.
That is awesome.
And so but it's one relationship at a time. It's especially in an area that has churches or a church influence. Our goal isn't to take from we're not poaching from other churches. There's about 67% or 63% of Payne County that is not churched in any way.
Gotcha.
So that's our audience.
Yeah.
But the only way that you're going to ever speak into those people's lives is you got to show up.
Yeah.
You got to meet needs. You got to be present. And as you earn the right and earn their respect and show that I don't want anything from you. There's no agenda. I care about you. How do we help? And if you want to come to our church, great. If you want to go to the church down the street, that's great. We just want to see you in church and fall in love with Jesus. So. Yeah, good. So we're gonna make a transition here. I don't have a good transition in this, but this segment is called Fill in the Blank. All right, and so I'm gonna ask you questions. You got to fill in the blank. All right. This wasn't on the email, by the way.
No, these are not. A lot of these questions were. A lot of this was not on the email. Yeah. If you could teleport anywhere right now, where would you go?
Oh, anywhere. Mountains. I'm torn. I fall in love with Angel Fire. I love to be in Estes Park. Alaska's on the bucket list. Everywhere is always mountains.
Mountains, okay. Yeah. The one thing you never leave without is
either my wallet or a hat on. This is there'd be some events. It's like, hey, Heather, should I? No, this is a non-hat day. But then as soon as the event's over, the hat's back on.
I wear a hat everywhere.
Absolutely.
I did a wedding maybe 3 weeks ago or so, maybe 2 months ago, and I did this. I was like, listen, y'all, I am bald headed, and if I don't have on this hat, I'm gonna like it's just gonna be it's just sweat.
Yes.
Just like my face is gonna be covered. I can't see. I'm gonna be wiping my face.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, they was like, "No, you look great. You look fine." So
I would say Ranger socks, but I'm not wearing any today. So I'd be lying.
let me see. Your dream dinner guest is.
Oh, dream dinner guest. Man, that's a hard one. There's so many people that alive or dead. Can they come back?
You can do either.
Man, you have to. It sounds cliche. Jesus, obviously, but the Apostle Paul. I think and that's one thing. When I get to heaven, I'm gonna track Paul down.
Yeah,
because man, he wrote some hard stuff. Went through some hard stuff.
Yeah.
But just to talk, man, the things that he wrote that we still have trouble understanding the depths, and he didn't even meet Jesus face to face. He did on the Damascus Road, but he wasn't that. So, modern day, man, I don't. Some of the people that I've had a chance. There's some local pastors that I've kind of like looked up to for a while that I've had a chance to meet lately. That's been pretty cool.
That's cool.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm trying. There's got to be some baseball. Nolan Ryan. There we go.
You named your son after him. I'd imagine you want to have dinner with him.
Yes. And I may bring some memorabilia to sign at dinner.
The best piece of advice you've ever received is?
Life's about choices. I think that we can, and even in faith circles, we say, as a cliche, God is in control, and we'll use that as an excuse to not do our part. And I think God's grace and mercy allows, it said that scripture says He works all things out to the good of those who love Him. But life is choices. There's, if you want something, I think God expects you to do your part as He does His part.
Yeah.
And so we either going to make the choice. Are you going to chase your dreams, or are you going to wish you had a dream? Yeah. So. Yeah,
that's good. Your favorite way to relax after a long day is?
I love my family. They're my people. I love sitting at home and just, I've discovered with ministry that it's a people business, obviously, or not even business, but it's about people. And so I need an off switch sometimes to just go home and just be with my crew, and they get the full version. Like they know the Matt that no one else knows, and love me for who I am and tolerate it and everything. And so when I got my kids around, and that's my place. Just be there.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Let's jump over to Guthrie real quick. What's been some of your favorite things about living in Guthrie, America?
Again, and I think the pace is it's just different. It's you can, for example, drive 20 minutes south on 2nd Street, and it's it's a dramatically different culture, just 20 minutes. I think that there's just something refreshing. It's just about the small town vibe. It's real. You don't get it, as you go into more metropolitan areas and stuff. But it's just the pace is just different.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah, I learned when we first moved here, I can't drive in Guthrie like I drove in Texas. Because I was like, who's that guy?
For sure. A couple more questions. What does community wins mean to you?
I think that it's a great reminder that life is bigger than yourself. Mm-hmm. And, when we stop focusing on us and look around and see the needs around us, everyone wins. Yeah. Whenever you're part of something, and to me, it's the small things speak loud. A simple note of appreciation to a school, to a teacher, can mean everything. I mean, I think it's just realizing that you're in a community that's much bigger than you. So how do you make a difference? Where's your mark? Right. The legacy that you have. Is it going to be about that you just did you cared about you, or can you change someone else's life? Yeah. So
that's good. Behind you, the sign says "Choose Guthrie." We got them all over the community for the most part. What does that mean to you?
I think again, it's owning the community. It's easy to want to drive to another area that may have different food choices or whatever. But when you buy local, shop local, all that kind of things. I have 2 boys that work fast food here. And you drive by Brahms, you see one of my twins, and if you go to Sonic, you don't realize that one of the other twins is cooking your burgers. And so shopping local, being part of the community means that you're actually part of the community. I don't know very many people driving from Moore or whatever to work at the Guthrie Brahms.
Right.
Most of them, it's Guthrie.
Yeah.
And so, I think there's time and places that you need to go to Edmond or Oklahoma City or whatever.
Right.
But that shouldn't always be our go-to, because there's, whenever you do stuff here, you support here. You know? And so it's just different.
That's good. Last question. What are you most grateful for?
I'll have to say is my family. Especially this season of life, we're going on this huge step of faith, and my family's my wife, man. I heard a phrase a long time ago that your call in the ministry depends on God, your longevity in ministry depends on your spouse. Because
I like that.
But if she hated ministry and all these things,
for sure,
it would. Because my first ministry is my family.
Yeah.
But man, they're our biggest cheerleaders right now.
For sure.
And so they're my most valuable relationship I have, and I married way over my pay grade. I know it, and so she's my best friend, and it's not cliche. But then our kids that's my world.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Matt.
Yep.
I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to continue to watch y'all's story unfold as you move on to Stillwater here soon and very soon.
Yep.
We're going to miss you all in GuthrieAmerica. I still got to get your wife on, so we make sure that we get Heather on here as well, because she has her own story, and be grateful to do that. Even if she moves, we're going to still do it.
And if she says a different, like what she's most proud of, if it's not
you want to
me,
come back and change your
I need you to text me and she's talking, hey, Matt, she didn't say you.
For sure. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for hitting that play button for another episode of the GuthrieAmerica podcast. We're on a mission to have every story told of those who are doing life in our great community and who are from here. The question is, ladies and gentlemen, that we love to end with is, will yours be next? Go win.